Hey folks, this is EJS from Thrivality Out Loud. Do you suffer from anxiety, stress, trauma, PTSD, or simply want to sleep better, perform better, have better energy and focus, and be the best version of yourself so you can fully show up in life? Well, you're in for a treat today because I have on the podcast Raffaele Gianfrancesco, a fast friend of mine who is an expert in neurofeedback and brain optimization. He's a certified brain trainer, former Wall Street guy, mystery school graduate. He's just a really interesting cat. And so during the podcast today, we talk about a device that he represents called the Roxiva, how he got interested in it and in brain optimization in general, how the Roxiva uses light and sound to stimulate brain states from alpha, beta, theta, and delta, how the brain gets in trouble in the first place, and why the brain kind of forms like these groove-like patterns, sort of like a groove on a record, but you get stuck in that groove, and how the Roxiva, helps to sort of erase those grooves so you can be the best version of yourself and you don't repeat the same pattern over and over. How the Roxiva is more powerful than other light-based brain devices on the market and most other brain training programs, and I've tried a fair number of them. How many tracks and programs are on the device? Hint, it's over 100. The cost of the Roxiva, and what other brain fitness devices he's tried. I've used this device several times. I really like it. It really has helped change my brain, improve my sleep, and I plan on just continuing to use it. And it also has tracks for psychedelic-like experiences without having to use the substances. So if any of that resonates with you, stay tuned for the podcast. Thanks. Before we get to the podcast, a few words about products that I highly recommend. First, we have Cellcore. Are you looking to optimize your gut, detoxify from environmental toxins, and increase cellular energy? Well, practitioner-grade cell products are the best that I have used for eliminating gut bugs, improving digestion, increasing cellular energy, and detoxifying from environmental toxins such as herbicides, pesticides, heavy metals, glyphosate, etc. These products literally transformed my gut, and I have tried a lot of gut optimization products over the years. What worked for me was taking their CT-zyme enzyme on an empty stomach, so first thing upon rising, and then also with meals. And then I would combine that also on an empty stomach with their parasite elimination products, Para 1, 2, and 3. And I was using these at pretty high levels to deal with unwanted friends along for the ride. And the results have been absolutely amazing. I also use their CT minerals and brain carbon ATB to increase cellular energy, which helps eliminate toxins because you need the energy to get them out, and also just to kind of fuel the brain and body so you can be the best version of yourself. So see the show notes for the link to Cellcore along with my practitioner code to be able to order, all right, because these are practitioner grade products. Secondly, are you interested in upgrading your body's energy field or your biofield? I have used a number of products over the years, from the Somavitic to a Blue Shield device and personal device and their cube. But I think my favorite has been Lila Quantum by far. So I have their Heal Capsule, which I wear all the time, and then I have their two of their Infinity Blocks here in the house over the past year and a half. And as I look back, like my life really began to shift over the past year and a half since I've been using these products. So visit the show notes for a link for 15% off. Thanks. Well, hello, everyone. This is EJS from Thrivality Out Loud, and I am super excited today to have Raffaele Gianfrancesco on the podcast today. Raffaele is a neurofeedback practitioner where he works with clients to help with executive brain function, sleep, anxiety, and just having a better experience of life through optimizing the brain. But he's got a super interesting background, right? He's got a certification in a 3-year mystery school. He studied philosophy. He's worked on Wall Street. And he's also been a hair salon owner. So he's had a colorful background, but he's really passionate about helping people optimize their brain so they can fully show up in life and be the best version of themselves and make the world a better place. So, Raffaele, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. Great to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Is there anything you'd add or edit to
the background there?
You did a good job. I love to travel. I love being involved in all things technological. I'm really I'm a geek about these sorts of things. So absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to talk tonight about a technology, speaking of gadgets, that you're really passionate about called the Roxiva. And so as I understand it, Roxiva is a light that does brain training or brain optimization through a mix of light and sound. But why don't you describe Roxiva, how you got interested in it, and kind of at a high level what it does, and then we can go from there.
Okay, I'll make it as brief as I can, but it's a bit of a long story.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the beginning of pandemic, basically, and just as I'm sure happened to you and many happened to me, that I was very bored and antsy, and a lot of the distractions that took me out of my discomfort weren't available to me. So I had already been through years of working on myself, trying to break through traumas and abuse of younger times, childhood, and so there's all this pain and all of this fight or flight kind of built into the system, and most of us just end up distracting ourselves or blowing off steam somehow. But pandemic took that away for a lot of people. I found that I needed to help me cope, and so I started doing a lot of reading and a lot of research, and I stumbled across NeuroFeedback. NeuroFeedback is a way of managing your brain states by providing a mirror to the brain of its activity. What you do is you attach sensors to your scalp, you put them on your ears, and you basically attach yourself to it's called a brain-computer interface, which gets connected to a computer. It mirrors your activity back to you and provides feedback through the headphones and through the screen so that the brain can begin to make decisions about where it's at. Is what it's is this a productive activity, so on and so forth. So I started doing that, loved it, and got into the business of NeuroFeedback because nobody was around to do it. So I just bought a system. I'm going to start doing it on myself.
Wow.
So yeah, it was self-taught, and then I went through the trainings and learned actually how to do it, and then actually acquired a bunch of systems and began doing neurofeedback on people that I know and offering the systems out for loan and rental so that people could do neurofeedback on themselves, because this is a very sophisticated self-driving form of system that I work with. So that was great, and I was getting really good results with it. But what I found was over time that I had balanced my brain after 30 or 40 sessions. I had eliminated a lot of the fight or flight response. A lot of that reactivity was gone. It was just a tremendous amount of peace that was available to me that wasn't before. But what I did learn was that a very common aspect of people that have trauma is that they kind of clip their extremes in terms of their emotional range. So to avoid feeling really crappy, you kind of narrow down the channel so that you're only operating in this kind of range of emotions, like bouncing between here and here. But to avoid the crappy, you also avoid the really good. So what I found was that even though I was feeling better, that my demeanor was flatter than I would like it to be. I didn't really have a lot of emotional range, or as much that I felt like I was.
Do you think your range decreased as a result of the training because it kind of just flatlined everything?
No, the range decreased as a result of the trauma. I realized that it had decreased because of the training.
Got it. So it gave you the awareness to see it.
It gave me the awareness that I was kind of limited in my ability to experience the world and to have beautiful experience, because in order to have the range to have really beautiful, joyful, euphoric experiences, I also had to have the range to be able to go really deep and dark, which I wouldn't let myself do because I was afraid that I wouldn't come out of it.
Got it.
I think it was Jung that said you can only go as far into heaven as you are willing, up into heaven as you are willing to go deep down into hell.
Mm. So basically, you have to feel into the darkness to really be able to experience
Yeah, and a lot of people with
the light.
trauma just choose not to go there. And by doing so, they limit their range and their experience on the other end of the spectrum, which is joy, euphoria, total happiness.
Mm.
So,
So being
so
able
the
to
reason
feel
I
fully
mentioned
into
that,
the Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, being
sorry.
able to feel fully into your experience, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And your trauma, and then process it and let it go.
Correct, correct. And
Yeah.
and the reason I mention that is because quite accidentally, at the same time, I was exposed to a practitioner that had a Lucia light, which is one of the first lights that came out before the Roxiva. It's an older technology. It's a very good light, but they're much more expensive, and they're a little kind of dated now in terms of the way they work, but still very good light. But I actually went to that practitioner and had an experience with the Lucia light, and had a beautiful, profound opening experience. And
Mm.
I was like, I want to get one of these. So I immediately began a deep dive because I wanted to add it to my practice, because I believe that neurofeedback could balance the brain. But if I could help people reach this state of euphoria utilizing technology, I could restore joy where it wasn't before. And it's much like the analogy, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah.
Constantly and continually expose the brain to these peak experiences. Eventually, the brain will learn what it feels like. It will learn what the mechanisms are to get there and how to get there, and will develop the tools to be able to do it on its own. So that was my goal. But again, I started looking, and this Lucia light was $23,000, and I said, no, I don't want to invest that. And I just kind of did a deep dive and found out that these two gentlemen in England had come up with a technology that was superior to what the Lucia was offering, and it was significantly less money. And I said, I'm going to find out about this. So I reached out to them and bought one.
And here you are. Okay.
And
So
here I
now
am.
you're
Yeah, I fell in love with it, and said I want to be involved with the organization.
right. So now you're the North American sales manager, as well as
Yeah, a master distributor. I import them from England and distribute them throughout the continent.
outstanding. Well, before we get into the details of the technology, but maybe let's take a step back up and think about brain optimization, because as I think about fitness, right? Every Friday I go do a HIIT workout with a trainer who's amazing. He's a federal police officer, Renaissance man, fitness nutrition expert. And it's amazing how my body is toning and shaping, and I'm developing muscles and things like that in a way that I haven't done before. But when we think about brain exercise or fitness, we're kind of flying blind, right? We don't. There's
Right.
We've had weightlifting and Nautilus machines and sports, but how do we exercise the brain?
Well, I mean, it's all about creating neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity, to define the term, is putting the brain in a state that it is primed to create new neuronal connections. And that can be achieved in many different ways. You can achieve neuroplasticity by brushing your teeth with a different hand than the one you normally do. I mean, certainly to a lesser degree, but most of the time we're walking around on autopilot. We're just kind of doing the things that we do all day long, every day, and running through our routines and going to sleep and then doing it again, which doesn't lead to a lot of new neuronal connections needing to be made. So anytime you change things up, if exercising creates neuroplasticity, driving a different way to work or from work creates neuroplasticity. Psychedelic drugs create neuroplasticity. Breath work creates neuroplasticity. Being in a sauna creates neuroplasticity. Anytime you've got what we call hormesis, which is healthy stress, it creates a state where the brain goes, hey, something's different. I better pay attention.
Mm.
And that act of something's different, I better pay attention, is when neuroplasticity begins, because our brains are designed to keep us alive. And back in the day, when no matter where you walked, there was danger, if you weren't in constantly alert, vigilant mode in a state of neuroplasticity, watching for what's around you and learning what's dangerous and distilling that down and passing that along to your tribe, you were dead.
Mm-hmm.
So it's natural to us to be able to go into these states.
Yeah, it's the way we adapted. Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about the Roxiva, what it is, because I know it's light, but it also has sound. So
Mhm.
describe for the user kind of like what it is and where you put it and how it works and how it creates this neuroplasticity.
Okay. So the Roxiva is a device. It has 16 high-powered LEDs on the face of it. It is mounted on a stand, and you either lie under it or sit in front of it. These 16 LEDs are capable of being programmed. Currently, we have over 100 different programs for different results. They're programmed to blink in different patterns. And what these patterns do through the closed eyelids is manipulate the suboccipital cortex through the optic nerve. Now, that's a lot of big words, I know. But what it basically does is it creates all of this noise in front of your eyes. It's choreographed noise, so that your brain has to really try to figure out what's going on. And it's designed to overwhelm the central nervous system in the case of a psychedelic trip, for example, to create chaos so that the brain can go neuroplastic and then reorganize in a better pattern. So it's doing that with light. It's doing that with sound. There's a choreographed soundtrack that goes with the light dance. So they go together so that whatever's happening with the light is being reflected in how the music is coming across. And most recently, we have been able to develop the technology to output that audio to a tactile device that you can mount to a chair or a bed or a table, massage table, and you can turn that surface that you're lying on into a vibroacoustic feedback device that is working in concert with the light and the sound. So now you've got complete immersion. You've got yourself on a ride that's hitting all the senses except for smell and taste.
That's it. There's a lot to unpack there. That's super interesting. So there are a lot of technologies out there that are now working on brain training. So I've been a NeuroFeedback user for over 3 years, and I use it every day, and I really like it. I did several years ago. I did quite a number of sessions with NeuroOptimal. Found it helpful, but I wouldn't say transformation, but helpful. I've done holosync like tracks for a number of years through either the I Awake folks or Eric Thompson over at subtle.energy, and I have found them helpful. Like I have a couple of tracks on my phone. One's called Golden Proportion, which is basically, the golden ratio or the Fibonacci sequence. And, if I've had a wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes I use that to put me back to sleep. And it has saved me many, many times, right? So there's lots of these technologies out there. How is the Roxiva different? There's 40 years of Zen with Dave Asprey's program. Trying to think of some of the others, but there's lots of offerings out there that kind of help. So how is the Roxiva different in terms of creating this neuroplasticity in the brain?
A lot of the devices you described are wearables, and they're wearable neurofeedback devices. Some of them are magnetic stimulation, transcranial stimulation. So what you're looking at is different classes of devices. Generally, the neurofeedback devices tend to use reward or deterrent signaling to either encourage or discourage certain frequencies within the brain that you're trying to target. The transcranial magnetic things, like I believe the NeuroFeedback, they use magnets to basically force certain areas in the brain to oscillate at a certain frequency, which creates certain effects. So
They
depending
don't. They're not using any magnets. So it's just neuroacoustic
okay.
they have an app, on your
Okay.
phone.
Okay.
So it's just neuroacoustic. They have a biosignaling disc that does go on your wrist that helps stimulate the production of GABA.
Okay.
Right. But basically what that does is just suspends your brain between theta and alpha. It's very relaxing.
I see.
And I'll use it to recover if to extend sleep sometimes. And I think it really has made a difference. Like I see myself, being able to move through stress a lot faster than I used to. I'm not triggered as much, but I've used it 2 times every day for like 3 years, So
let me rephrase then and say that I didn't have the name right, but the technology that I was describing, the transcranial magnetic stimulation, the TCMS, that does use magnets. Newcom doesn't use that technology, is what you're telling me, which I know that I got the name wrong, but transcranial magnetic stimulation does what I described, which it uses magnets that you place near the scalp, either here or here on the top or in the back. And what it does is these fairly powerful magnets are able to manipulate the field that your brain is putting out, because around your entire brain and scalp, there is a magnetic field that is always being put out. It's actually what is depicted in ancient pictures and old pictures of people with halos.
Yeah. Okay. The aura.
So somebody with a white halo indicates a purity of thought, a purity of mental field. So that's actually what the halo depicts.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Well, back to the Roxiva then. How is it different than many of these other offerings in terms of creating greater neuroplasticity in the brain?
So because of the nature of the way we developed through evolution, our eyes and our suboccipital cortex are the biggest users of energy, and the suboccipital cortex is the largest single part of the brain, because it is so important to our survival to have adequate visual processing. We see the world and we react to it. So because of that, it is the most powerful way to work with the central nervous system, because we are light-based. Everything is light-based. The entire universe is light-based. So when you're talking about utilizing a technology to work with what we are, what we're made of, how we're composed, light just springs to the forefront as the most effective technology. It is effectively first language. The sun is a source of light, but it's a source of information in our solar system that feeds everything. Sound is a subset of frequencies within light. And sound can be very effective, but given the choice between sound or light, in terms of which is more powerful, light will win every time. It's just the way we're built.
Interesting. Yeah, because a lot of the technologies out there use sound, right? I mean,
and it's great. It's great. Well, I mean, look, we've had HoloSync since the 80s, and in the Monroe Institute, probably just as long, with these binaural beats and being able to work with the brain using sound. So those technologies have existed for a very long time. We're really only probably midway through the first part of the 2000s before these truly effective light-based entrainment devices appeared, because the technology just didn't exist. We did not have LEDs powerful enough and fast enough in terms of their refresh and blink rate to create these complex sequences. To, in effect, what we're trying to do is create chaos in the central nervous system, much like shaking the Etch-a-Sketch so that something new can be created. Or
I love that. I love that Etch-a-Sketch image. Right?
Shaking the snow globe too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the light basically is more powerful. It stimulates the most important parts of the brain to kind of reset the brain and the nervous system. Is kind of what I'm
Yes, yes. So there, as I mentioned earlier, there are about 100 programs built into the Roxiva, and they range from deep delta frequencies, which are equivalent to being in deep sleep, where you're in deep sleep, you're producing human growth hormone. Usually the only time of day that grown-ups like us produce human growth hormone is in the first cycle of deep delta REM sleep when we go to bed. And so anything that puts us into deep delta gives us the opportunity to create human growth hormone, which is a wonderful thing for anybody that's getting older. We have theta and alpha programs that put you into either deep healing states or hypnotic trances. The lamp is in effect a device that can put you into trance and that can be used for hypnosis. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of clients that are hypnotherapists that use the lamp now in their practice because of the ability to customize the audio track. I can create, for example, my own self-hypnosis session using my own voice with suggestions, and basically put the sound of my voice onto the lamp and run a session where I'm hypnotizing myself and listening to myself, give myself affirmations and or suggestions.
Yeah, those are incredibly powerful. I also have the brain tap system. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it headset. Then it has it comes around and has lights that flash at you. Not near as powerful as the Roxiva, but Dr. Porter, who created the thing, has tons of different tracks for different types of affirmation. And I listen to that sometimes in the morning when I first wake up, and it's like, that's amazing. And then when I go for a walk, I do a series of affirmations, and if I do that like 3 to 4 or 5 times, I'm like charged up, so ready to go. So they really do make a difference.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. But when you open the mind, utilizing the hypnotic beat of the light, it really goes in deeply. It really does. It's quite phenomenal.
So let's talk a little bit about the power of the Roxiva versus some of these other technologies. Is it 2 times, 3 times? Like, what's the magnitude of efficiency and effectiveness with the light? And
well, I mean, it's so powerful that we don't near where what it's capable of. So I mean, it's definitely, it's designed for people that want that next level of power, that maybe have had a brain tap or a David Delight or any number of the devices out there that have the little goggles with the tiny LEDs inside them that they blink and they create a little bit of a visual pattern, and they can provide some entrainment. They certainly do what they claim they're going to do. But if you really want to go to that next level of, for example, opening the circuits so that you can get in there and do some real reprogramming and real rewiring. I mean, you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza and his meditations and the way. So it's all about rewiring what's there. And in order to rewire what's there, what you're doing has to be at or above the intensity that which it went in with, which is why his meditations tend to be very powerful. Okay. And that course is so expensive because there's a lot of power and energy that goes behind the work that he does. Same thing with the Roxiva, the intensity and the power with which is available to you, should you choose to use the programs that are more powerful, have by far a greater ability to affect change in the central nervous system than anything else that's on the market. It's that powerful. We can't run it at its maximum capacity. It's too powerful. We've actually manufactured it in a way that dials back its capabilities. Now, as we evolve as humans, as our capabilities grow, we'll be able to progressively, most likely, increase what the lamp is capable of evoking within us. But, I always make the joke, at the end of Men in Black, the movie, after all of the alien stuff that's going on and the movie's ready to close, what do they do to the main character of the movie to make him forget everything that he saw?
I don't remember.
They blink a really bright light. It flickers in his eyes, and it wipes his memory. Now, I'm not saying the Roxiva is going to wipe your memory, okay? I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, it's been proven that everything you see in these movies is based on some sort of real technology that exists. Look at Star Trek back in the day with the little communications devices.
We now have them.
Right?
Carry 'em in
Flip
our pocket.
phones. They became flip phones, and then they eventually became smartphones. The computer is on the main deck. I mean, it's these people, these science fiction minds are always ahead of the curve in terms of what's available. Just to give you an actual real life example, the 58th SOW, which is a squadron at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico, they are using Roxiva with their pilots and families as part of a spiritual development and wellness development program. These are people that are at the forefront of our nation's security. They're flying the big bombers. They're putting their necks on the line every day. And the reason they chose this technology is that when you've got multi-million dollar pieces of equipment up in the air, you want the best minds operating them. And so as part of their training and their recovery, they're utilizing Roxiva, and it's been phenomenal.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So let's talk a little bit about how the brain maybe gets into trouble, and then how a user would use Roxiva. So let's just say you've been through a stressful event. Let's just say, you struggled with some health issue and you had trouble sleeping. So then you start to get anxious about going to sleep at night, because if you don't sleep, it's terrible, right? It's, and then after that happens for a couple of days where you're not getting any good sleep, then you really start to fall apart emotionally, right? So, and physically over time. So, you can develop anxiety around perhaps sleep, or you've had a traumatic event, right? Maybe you've been in the military, or you're a first responder, or you had some sort of abuse in your history. What happens to the brain when we experience trauma?
Well, I mean, our brain, as I had mentioned earlier, is designed to keep us alive. It's designed to protect us. And so our brain is a negative bias instrument. It basically remembers all the bad stuff and discards the good stuff, because the bad stuff can kill you. The good stuff can't. Okay.
That's a super interesting insight. Is that why that's why we're so attracted to fear, politics, like the world is coming apart, because it's
written into all the
more of an
algorithms.
Emotional charge.
It's written into all the algorithms, and they've proven that they do A/B testing when they do writing of copy or writing of ads for Facebook ads or Google ads or anything online, and it's always the copy that gives you either fear of missing out, or fear of being insufficient, or fear of somebody getting ahead faster than you. It's always loss-based, that they lead with, that gets the attention. And so we're coded for it, and it's worked. I mean, through evolution, through millions of years, we have survived because we remember that squiggly little thing on the ground is a snake, and if it bites us, we're dead. So there's nothing wrong with it as a defense system, but though when you remove 90% of the threats that we faced in the wild, the only threats that remain are existential. And when you only have existential threats, now it's not your life that's in danger, it's your reputation, or your ego, or your self-concept, or your status. So we now live in a world where in constant fear of being emotionally or I don't know what the other word would be, but emotionally or intellectually annihilated. We fear annihilation of our self-concept. So we react to things that are only mental in nature the same way as if they were actual physical threats.
Yeah, so the brain remembers the bad stuff. So let's just say we're a first responder, for example, and we've served in the military and we've had a traumatic experience. You come back and you hear your neighbor start the lawnmower, and you're looking for your M16. What's going on there?
What's going on there is that just as Dr. Joe Dispenza would say, circuits that fire together and continue to fire together, wire together. So, it's like water running down a hill. Eventually, it's going to create a groove and then a rut and then a channel and then a river. And once that happens, just try to make the water go another way. You can't.
You can't. Yeah, this that's a really good analogy. I think, one of the things, like, I'm really passionate about helping people with complex illness, like with Lyme and mold. And so one of the things that happens when you go through those experiences is you can become sensitive to everything in your environment, right? So if you've been exposed to mold, for example, you can become multi-chemical sensitive, right? So all of a sudden, you've been totally healthy, you got exposed to perhaps you're living in a moldy environment, you move to an office and they've got mold, you become super sensitive over time, right? So you used to be able to go and smell perfume and no issue. And so what'll happen sometimes is people become so sensitized to everything, they have to go live in a boat, right? Or in the woods in a trailer, right? where they can not smell anything, get rid of all their chemicals because they become so hypersensitive. So that's an example of how the brain can get grooved in and become hyper vigilant about its environment.
And then, what you're talking about is actually very close, because the brain is connected to the spinal cord, and the entire central nervous system is always communicating with its outside environment. And when inflammation sets in, and usually an allergic reaction is a form of inflammation, depending on where it starts and where it propagates, then you're going to get just kind of a pylon effect that occurs. It just kind of keeps going. So it requires interrupting the pattern somehow, just like you said, getting out of the environment, making drastic diet changes, any number of things, but you're not going to get out of the loop without doing something wildly different than what you've been doing.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about how the Roxiva then helps, rewire and get rid of those grooves in the brain, the etch-a-sketch image where, you're starting with a new drawing. Yeah.
So I can make the analogy to actual psychedelics, because although not all of the programs on the Roxiva are psychedelic in nature, a good deal of them are. And the reason is that psychedelics work. I mean, psychedelics, when you take them, create enough of a shake up and shock to the system that it causes the body to go, what, and it has to reorganize and kind of do a reset. Many people experience when they do either ayahuasca or mushrooms or LSD or any number of the other chemicals, ketamine, they experience results in their body that they didn't even want to address with the psychedelic. But because you have created this opportunity for positive chaos in the brain, everything gets looked at. The entire system shifts. And that's why integration is so important with psychedelics and with anything really. The light, with any of the devices you use. If after you stop the session of whatever you're doing, you go right back to your other life that you were doing before and do things exactly the same way, those patterns are just going to reestablish themselves. So what the Roxiva is doing is it's creating that initial impetus, it's shaking things up, it's putting the brain and nervous system into a neuroplastic state, it's disrupting the normal signals, it's giving the system an opportunity to make another choice. And that's what wellness is always about. It's about making another choice. Should I have this ice cream, or should I have this healthy keto treat instead? Both are tasty, but one of them is going to continue your dairy allergy and the other one isn't. So, and that's what it's about. It's about taking a pause, allowing the system to reset, creating some chaos so that it can reorganize in a better place. And that's what working out is. You stress the muscles, they get tired, they hurt, and then they're stronger. Same thing.
Yeah. Outstanding. Well, I've done several sessions at a local wellness center of the Roxiva. So I've done deep delta dive, the dolphin. What's the dolphin one? It's kind of
dolphin chakra.
Yeah, it's an interesting name, and that's kind of mirrored on a psilocybin journey. Yeah. I've done brain bath at least a couple of times. I think I did one of the LSD like ones. Yeah. So I've done at least a half a dozen so far.
Those are fun. You mentioned brain bath. I love brain bath because what brain bath does is it puts the brain through a bit of a workout, and it causes the ventricles in the back of the brain that connect to the spine and the spinal cord to open, and it allows cerebrospinal fluid to flow forward into the brain. And that's basically what happens when we go to sleep. When we go to sleep, a signal is sent, these ventricles open, and the cerebrospinal fluid flows up out of the spinal column, and it bathes the brain. It absorbs all the toxins and impurities out of the brain and pulls it back into the spinal cord, where it can cross the blood barrier and be expelled out through the lymphatic system. So
yeah, that's so important. I mean, for people who deal with chronic health issues or tough stuff like Lyme and mold, they typically have leaky gut, which means they have leaky brain. And so you get inflammation in the brain, and then that affects everything from digestion to the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis. Yeah. And so, we can measure this with medical tests now. And so we can see it. So that it's really critical that people get this kind of stimulation, right? In addition to all the other healthy stuff they're doing, but it's hard to do.
It is. It really is. The thing is that you're always looking for ways to improve, always looking for ways to tweak the system, and really that's what the entire biohacking and hacking industry in general is about. It's about trying to find faster, more effective ways to get from here to there. And that's what this is about. The Roxiva is a very effective hack to hack the brain, to hack the central nervous system. They've even shown that flickering light has been tested and scientifically proven to have beneficial impacts on Alzheimer's and dementia patients, because the flicker effect has been proven to assist in at least helping people that are dealing with these terrible, are they illnesses? What are they even called? I mean, I know that they're starting to call Alzheimer's and dementia type 3 diabetes. It's basically diabetes of the brain. It's all this sugar in our system. And you think about it, you've got these tiny, thin little capillaries that are in your brain that are so fine that blood has to try to get through. But because we've got so much sugar in our systems, our blood is just thick and pasty and sticky. So what happens? These capillaries get clogged up and they die.
Yeah. And then when we sleep at night, we're not getting that flushing. Right. Because the blood vessels are.
Yeah. And we're not sleeping as well anymore. That's been proven. I mean, most people eat the wrong things and they eat too late at night. They're not fasting long enough before they go to sleep to drop their insulin in their system so that they never, ever get into the deep REM sleep. Because if there's any insulin in your system at all, you will not go into deep REM and delta. You just won't do it.
Oh, that's very interesting. So this is a quick side. What time do you eat dinner?
I usually eat dinner around 4 o'clock. I finish about 5:30. I kind of, nibble for an hour and a half because I'm a 1 meal a day guy. So I don't eat until that 4 o'clock. So I eat in basically a 2-hour window, and then I fast for 22 hours. So if I get done at 6 o'clock and I'm in bed by 9:30, I've got 3.5 hours for my last bite till my head hits the pillow. And that's plenty of time to remove all that insulin.
Yeah. I could talk to you for hours. This is fascinating because I have been doing more or less 1 meal a day for like the past week. Now, I will say I make some smoothies. I do drink some dairy, just to keep the calories up. I use A2. I use really grass-fed, high-quality stuff, and it works reasonably well for me. But I cannot tell you how much better I feel doing that. Just like I eat dinner, I'm not eating salad.
Digestion is a very energetically expensive process.
Yeah.
There's a reason why critters go to sleep after they eat, because they need to conserve energy because they don't have the energy available when they're digesting. And we as humans have been conditioned to eat way more than we need to and way more frequently than we need to. And now, sadly, stuff that isn't even food anymore.
Yes. Well, I have to ask this question because you know an awfully lot about biohacking in the brain. How long have you been kind of into the biohacking space?
I started when Dave Asprey wrote Bulletproof. I think that
got it. That's about the same time for me.
I think that had to be 2017, 2016, maybe 2015.
Yes,
I'm not sure when the book came out, but it's been a while now. It's been a long time, and I feel great. I think I look pretty good, and my muscle tone is still pretty good. I'm going to be 59 this year, and
still going strong. Yeah. Well, back to the Roxiva. So let's walk the listener through some of the various programs. Like, what are your top favorite ones that you'd want to highlight? You've talked about Brain Bath. You talked a little bit about Deep Delta Dive. What else is at the top of your list?
Well, I mean, so there's different categories of sessions. There are spiritually based ones that, if you're into that sort of thing, they can help you connect with source. They can help you open your third eye. They can help you go on visionary journeys. So there's a whole category of sessions that are designed for that type of person that is of the esoteric or spiritual ilk. Okay. Bunch of those. There's also the productivity ones. So we have Getting Things Done is one of my favorite sessions. We have Midday Power Nap. We have Time to Focus. We have The Zone. So we have sessions that can immediately put you into the zone. Immediately.
Oh, so when you say the zone, are you talking like a flow state?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Immediately. We have one called The Zone.
Interesting. It's so funny you should say that, because I'm reading a book by Stephen Kotler right now. It's about doing the impossible. I don't know if you're familiar with Stephen Kotler, but he runs the Flow.
I have heard the name, but I'm not too familiar with.
Yeah, he's one of the worldwide experts in flow states. So him and Jamie Wheel wrote a book a few years back called Stealing Fire. Stephen Kotler is a prolific writer. I met him once at the Bulletproof Conference way back in 2014, and he was setting up like a flow dojo studio at the event, and I've got pictures of me, so I'm reading this book, and he's talking about flow and flow triggers. So if you've got a device that can put somebody in flow, because it takes some work to get into flow.
Immediately, like boom, you're in flow. Flow is a brainwave state. They've always the best golfers say that the most important 6 inches on a golf course is right here.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And we have specific protocols. When I was back in the NeuroFeedback doing that full time before I came into the Roxiva world, we had protocols specifically for golfers for NeuroFeedback. And this Roxiva takes it to the next level, because with the neuro training, you can train the brain over time to recognize flow states and go into them. And with the Roxiva, you can just create flow, boom, and the brain is so intelligent that it says, oh, that's what he wants to do? All right, I'll learn how to do that. And so if you anchor that while you're doing the session, you could just do your anchor whenever you want and go right into flow, because your brain knows how to do it, because you've guided it to it.
And how long does the effect last?
Well, I mean, again, it's always going to be environmental and what type of post work you do. So if you go into a flow session and finish it, come out being in total flow, and then step out into your chaotic life where everything's hitting you 100 miles an hour and you don't stay present, you could lose it, obviously, fairly quickly, you know? So it's all about, and that's why there are breath work sessions on the lamp as well. So there's a full meditation series. The lamp is very powerful at helping deepen meditation. We've actually had Tibetan monks measured with a EEG cap under the stimulation of the light, and the gamma that they're generating is just off the charts and much faster than when they can do it on their own, because these monks have the capability of generating gamma just by sitting in meditation. But because of the entrainment capabilities of the Roxiva, you get there much faster. You just, because the brain says, oh, okay. And it's called the frequency following response.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you talked about spiritual development, deepening meditation, flow states. What else?
So I mentioned productivity. I mentioned creativity. We have entire programs which are designed to expand the parts of the brain that are related to creativity. So, looking forward with AI looming on the horizon, and we've got Chat GPT now, which is going to be putting copywriters out of business, and you've got DALL-E 2, and I forgot what the name of the other Mid-Journey, which is for images, which you basically put in a bunch of terms into this chat, and it creates an image, a completely unique image that never existed before in the universe out of the words that you created. So, unicorn with 6 eyes riding in a Ferrari, it will generate that,
Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So as human beings, there's the very real possibility that within a certain amount of time, we're not going to be the most intelligent beings on the planet. This AI is learning very fast. So why do I mention that? Because we have the ability to constantly and consistently develop our minds. We have neuronal connections in our brains that we just don't use. We just, they're asleep waiting to be used. And we have the capability of awakening them and becoming super beings. Dr. Joe Dispenza, what was the name of his book?
Supernatural. Becoming supernatural.
Becoming supernatural or superhuman. And so we have that ability. We can be smarter than the AI. We just have to put in the work. And the technology is there to assist us. But
there's no free lunch.
sadly, most people just don't want to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Any other tracks or capabilities that you want to highlight?
Well, I mean, we have programs that, we don't make any medical claims with the Roxiva. We're not a medical device. We're not treating anything. We're not fixing anything. But we do have protocols that have been reported to help people deal with things like pain. For example, pain is a signal. Pain is a signal that lives in our brain. It lives in our central nervous system, just like Lyme disease lives in your central nervous system, and it can be reawakened through any number of stimuli or inflammation that can occur. With the right frequencies, with the right patterns, we have had clients report that they've experienced lessening of pain. So, we're not saying that we cure pain, but it is possible, it has occurred that people have done light sessions and experienced lessening of discomfort, lessening of pain, definitely improvement of sleep. The lamp can reset your circadian rhythms. We have entire protocols for people with sleep issues, where if you do certain sessions every day and then certain sessions right before you go to sleep, you reset your circadian clock and you have much improved sleep.
Yeah, that sleep optimization has been a real focus of mine for a long time, because I've not always been great at deep sleep.
Right.
And I will say this: some of the more recent better nights of sleep has been since I've been using the Roxiva. Now it's not the only thing I'm doing, but I've definitely.
But it is one new thing that you're doing since you've been sleeping there. Yeah. No, it's absolutely so. I mean, look, they say, I don't know if you follow Dr. Andrew Huberman. He's a pretty good.
I know of him. Yeah.
So he says that every morning you need to get outside and get sunlight in your eyes immediately. Immediately.
Yep.
As soon as you wake up, go out and like look at the sun. Get sun in your eyes because you need to reset your circadian clock. You need to get full spectrum light into your eyes early on in the day. And the reason for that is that it resets your circadian clock. But some people have been on these messed up schedules for so long that their circadian clocks are just completely messed up. And they need that snow globe shake or that etch-a-sketch shake to do a reset. So we've actually got programs on the lamp called Neural Reset, which actually use a specific pattern to, over time, with repeated practice, allow for breaking down negative patterns.
That's really powerful. I'll have to try that one.
So let's talk about. It's a very boring session. It's not very visually stimulating. You know, it doesn't even really have music. But the idea is that you focus on the light, and it does its work.
That's a good caveat, because I think some of the sessions I have found more stimulating than others, and sometimes I wonder, well, did it really do anything? But I think what you're saying is consistency and use over time.
Yeah,
it does the work.
Well, I mean, you can go to the gym and go in the pool, or you can go to the gym and do squats, or you can go to the gym and ride the elliptical. They're all going to do different things. Some are more fun than others, and some are harder and easier than others.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, so basically, let's talk a little bit about usage, right? So the light mounts on a stand. I've laid where I go. They have like it's not a massage table. It's kind of like a sound bed, actually.
Right.
And they put it about 12 to 15 inches from my maybe 2 feet. And the sessions last anywhere from 8 minutes to, I think the longest I've done would be like brain bath, which is 40. So walk people through like how it's set up and what they experience.
So you've actually done a great job so far. It's a round shaped device, and it's got this star pattern of 16 LEDs. The LEDs are all white, so there's no color coming out of the lamp at all. 8 of the LEDs are cool white, and 8 of the LEDs are warm white, much like the LED light bulbs that you can buy. Like the cool ones have that kind of like bluer fluorescent color, and the warm ones have the kind of glow of a candle. But it's still white light, okay? And the reason for that is that we want that full spectrum light, okay? And you can't get it unless you have both the cool and the warm working together. These lights are programmed, depending upon the session, to activate in certain combinations, in certain patterns, in certain brightnesses and frequencies to stimulate the optic nerve and thereby the suboccipital cortex. What we're basically doing is playing your central nervous system as if it were a heart. Think of it as a concert. Every blink of the light, every flash, every sound that comes out of it, the vibration is just another instrument in that orchestra. And that symphony that you can create can be very mournful and pensive, like a dirge, like the funeral marches, or they can be very powerful or very fast, like Flight of the Bumblebees. So it's really a good analogy to kind of compare the light to these musical references, because we can feel music and you can feel the light. So each one of these programs is a different composition. It's a composition of light, first language, and sound. So those are going to have an effect on you, much like if you go to a death metal concert, that music is going to have an effect on you.
Yes.
And the effect is basically only limited by your imagination and the program that you select. And the team at Roxiva is amazing. They're coming out with new sessions all the time. They came out with one recently called Stellar Gateway, which basically puts you in the driver's seat of a stellar journey, and you feel like you're just progressing through just eons. of space and time. And it's gorgeous. I mean, you've seen it, the fractals, the kaleidoscopic effects. You can't imagine that there's only white light blinking because you see colors that don't exist in the crayon box.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, that's well said. You do see a lot of colors on some of those tracks. Yeah. Okay, so you got the disc, you mount it on a stand. It's 2 feet to 12 inches away.
It's blinking. You've got the headphones on, and you have the vibration of either the bed or the chair or the table, whatever you have.
If you have it connected to a bed, the sound bed, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And how much does the sound bed or the earphones contribute to the effect? Like, do you need a sound bed too to make it work, or?
The lamp with headphones is the complete system. The sound vibration component is an add-on if you want to go to that next level of immersion. So you don't have to have the vibration. So I have plenty of people that just love their lamp and their headphones, and that's all they need to do. So me, I'm the kind of guy that likes to get into the zero gravity chair and really go on a completely immersive journey. And with the vibration, that happens for me. It is immersive without the vibration, absolutely. But I think it's more fun. So
yeah, adds another dimension to the.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So we can help with trauma, sleep, executive function, focus, creativity. How often does someone need to? So let's just say, I mean, I don't know how much the Roxiva costs, but it's I know it's not $500, right? So
no, it's 5,500. So it's a great product for individuals or practitioners. It's robust, it's well built, it has a very long life, and it has a tremendous amount of technology built into it so that all of the improvements that are made to the operation of the Roxiva are made through software updates, which are free forever if you're a Roxiva lamp owner. All new sessions are free. All firmware upgrades are free. So once you get the Roxiva, it's not like you've got to subscribe to this or pay for that or buy bundles of sessions or have a subscription. There's none of that. And they did that for a reason. I mean, they wanted people to be able to have the full capabilities of the lamp from day one.
Okay. And how are the updates shared? Is it Wi-Fi? Like, how do you get them onto the?
So there's a USB port on the lamp and a USB stick in the USB port, and you just basically take the USB stick, put it in your computer, put the sessions that you want onto it, put it back in the lamp, and they transfer.
Okay. And back to the session question. So if you can't swing the 5,500, but you find someone nearby,
right?
How often does someone need to go to kind of see progress?
Well, I mean, initially, probably at least once a week. You're gonna feel it immediately. So it depends on what you're going for. It's not as if it has a fixed result at the end of every session. It's cumulative. It's a cumulative effect. So every time you go, your brain gets a little better. And so, how good do you want your brain to get? You know?
Yeah. Well, it's very similar to like if you're going to NeuroOptimal, right? You got to go once a week, and you got to commit to 30 to 40 times to go to see.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's what people can expect.
If you just want to have a great experience, if you just want to do a psychedelic journey and get some really cool realizations and get all the benefits of psychedelics without actually having to take a substance, that's an immediate result, and it's a complete packaged situation. You did it. You got what you wanted, and you're done. So you could just go and do it once and be happy, for example. But I think a lot of the people, especially the people that realize how powerful it is for hacking behavior as a hypnotherapy type device and a conditioning type device, they want to go as much as they can, or they want to get a lamp because it's a competitive edge. It's something that I know personally since I've been working with the Roxiva. I'm sharper. I just feel sharper. My word finding is very good. My processing ability, comprehension. Yeah, I mean, it's great.
Yeah. So let's talk about the business owner, talk to the business owner, someone who's a doctor, a therapist, a wellness clinic owner. How do they incorporate this into their business?
Good question. So most of what brings people into these offices is symptomatic of a stress or inflammation response. So a lot of the time, the patient's walking in and they've got dozen daily lifestyle choices that they're making, or behavioral choices that they're making, or family energetics, dynamics that they're reacting to, that beat them down. And these emotional insults add up and manifest as physical stuff in many cases. Or if they already have some physical stuff going on, and then you pile on stress and emotional suffering and all of that, it becomes very difficult to get the patient to respond favorably to the treatment, especially if you're in a holistic environment. Many times, for example, one of my biggest clients in terms of an industry or the float tank industry, which is where you go to a float place to do your sessions. And what's been reported to me famously and regularly is that most people spend half their time in the float tank just trying to get to a place where they can enjoy the float. Like they literally don't enjoy the float until the very end of the float, because it takes them that long to unwind all their crap.
Really? Wow.
So the Roxiva can help in a clinical environment or a float environment for people to drop that stress more quickly. So anything that is, so if you could do a 5-minute session and be calmed right down, you're going to be much more receptive to any type of treatment option that's offered to you, instead of just saying, give me a pill and I want to get out of here. And so,
yeah,
anybody
you raise, I mean, I don't want to go backwards, but I kind of want to ask this question because you said something that piqued my interest. So let's talk about somebody dealing with Lyme, right? And it's sort of hiding in the nervous system, and then there's a trigger that brings it out. They might get bitten by a tick or some other. I don't know how I got Lyme. I really don't know how I got it, but I got it. And then again, I want to be careful how I say the question, but can you help someone deal with these kinds of conditions? Do they originate because of brain and nervous system stress, or is it physical? And can you help people? Yeah,
it's a chicken and egg question, you know. And so, look, are there symptoms and illnesses out there that just happen to people mechanically without brain involvement? Of course. I mean, somebody stabs you, you got a problem. It's got to get fixed. You know what I mean? So, but if somebody stabs you and you're an emotional train wreck and you're convinced you're going to die the entire time, or if somebody stabs you and you're a Zen monk and you're thinking, I will be well, I will be well, I will survive, I am at peace, who's going to have the better outcome?
Right.
So you cannot separate the brain and the central nervous system from the rest of the body, because what we think, we become. We are our dominant thoughts. So anything that helps with the junk that's bouncing around inside our craniums is going to give us better outcomes everywhere in our life.
Yeah, well said. I don't think there's any silver bullet, and I have found these complex issues take a multimodal approach. But I think getting the brain optimized is such a critical component. You know, when I talk to my colleagues in functional health, I'll ask them, how many of your clients are really willing to do the work? And it's usually somewhere between 5 and 10%.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the reason is they don't have that awareness level to choose the paleo snack or the keto snack over the ice cream, right? Or to be consistent with, taking the medicines or the supplements they need to do and doing the work. And I think what you're doing with the Roxiva is giving the brain, a reset, a new level of energy, and an ability to be aware, so you can make better choices and be more compliant and do what you got to do.
It's putting you back in charge of you.
So you're not on autopilot mode anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it brings you into the present, and it gives you the tools to develop your will so that you can do these things that are good for you.
Awesome. Well, we kind of need to start to, we're getting a little bit long here. Want to start to wrap up. I feel like I could talk to you for forever. What are 3 questions I should have asked that didn't? Or what are 3 things that you would like to share that I didn't prompt you to cover?
Okay. Well, how do people find out more about Roxiva is one of them.
Okay. Yeah. How do they?
They can go to roxiva.com, and it's ROXIVA, roxiva.com. And another question is, let's see. It's hard to come up with negative. All right, let's see where to put this brain.
Reverse questions. Yeah.
You're giving me a test here again. So how about, where's the next big event that I'm going to be showing Roxiva at?
Oh, that's a good one.
All right, I'm going to be at MAPS in Colorado.
Fantastic.
Yes, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. I'm a sponsor. We're going to have a booth there, and we're going to be showing the device to the psychedelic community, because we believe it's a this to type situation. It's not an instead of psychedelics, it's an addition to. It can be used as a way to show people what a psychedelic experience is like if they've never had one, because a lot of people are scared to do psychedelics because they have no idea what's going to happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
So the Roxiva can simulate a psychedelic experience for somebody that's never had one, and it can help them integrate it once they've had it.
Fantastic. So I guess that's fantastic. So one of the questions that I had typed out or written down to ask you was, what does the Roxiva marry with? What does it go well with?
Mm-hmm.
So could someone take, once they've experienced the Roxiva and they decide, oh, I'd like to do maybe, like I said, could you do like a microdose and the Roxiva?
So as a representative of Roxiva, it isn't in the best. I shouldn't be recommending anybody be doing anything using chemical with our device. I could speak from personal experience that I have had some experiences in that regard, and I've had very good results from that. But I certainly will not recommend that anybody take psychedelics either in micro or macro dose in conjunction with the Roxiva.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay. Is there anything mainstream in terms of supplements, brain support? I
do a mushroom stack. I do reishi, cordyceps, chaga. There's a bunch of them. I take a supplement. It's a nootropic mushroom blend that I take, and none of them are psychedelic. It's all just adaptogens and nootropics. So there's definitely a giant market now for nootropics, and there are definitely some nootropics that you can also use with the Roxiva to increase the effects. But again, if you're going to take anything, always check with your doctor and make sure that it fits into your overall health plan. So
yeah. Well, good advice. All right. So people can visit roxiva.com to learn more about the unit, getting in touch with you. The cost you said is $5,500. And how often are they coming out with new tracks?
All the time. Like it seems like sometimes it's like one a week, sometimes it's one a month. But there's a really prolific team of music mixers and light track programmers that are just Lance Carter, who is at the head of the team of development, is just amazing. He's got a neuroscience background, and he's got NLP, and he's got all of the right credentials to understand the workings within the noggin. And he's written some gorgeous tracks. And
I've read some of his posts, and I was like, ooh, I think I'd like to meet him.
He's a brilliant writer. He's just he's so prolific. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
And Jimmy Simpson is the managing director, and he's an electrical engineer, and he's the guy that actually figured out how to make this work technologically. It's pretty funny. He showed me the prototype for the device, and he needed to create a round surface with high-powered LEDs in it, and basically needed to do a prototype. So he made it out of a frying pan. So the first prototype of the Roxiva was actually, you hold it with a handle, it was a frying pan with these LEDs in it, and all the electronics were in the back. And that was years and years ago, but he's just such a genius. He was able to do this.
Yeah.
Hats off to him. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, what are 3 teachers or teachings that have, inspired you on your journey to where you are today?
All right. So Bessel van der Kolk wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score. He was one of the main reasons why I got into somatic work and neurofeedback, to release all of this stuff that was just accumulated, the crust of decades of trauma and anxiety and abuse. So he's a big teacher. Also, Gurdjieff, G.I. Gurdjieff. I don't know if you're familiar with Gurdjieff, but
a little bit.
Yeah. His theory that we are machines and that we're all asleep and that we need to wake up really resonates for me. And that's kind of the torch that I've taken. My goal is to go out into the world and alleviate as much suffering as I can and wake up as many people as I can. So he's a great teacher. And I have to do a hats off to Dave Asprey for turning me on to Bulletproof, and he really was my deep dive education into the rabbit hole of, I didn't know about seed oils and good carbs, bad carbs, and all of the no.
He
carbs.
really did pioneer a whole movement.
He really did. He really did. And so, I mean, there's a list as long as my arm. I'm an avid reader, so there's always a book in my hands. I mean, Carl Jung is a hero of mine, and his work with shadow and archetypes really shapes the way I approach my daily work with trying to see what's going on under the surface.
Yeah. Well, good stuff. That's a great place to stop. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. And I will put the show notes, the link to roxiva.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we'll definitely be talking again.
Oh, I'd love to. I really enjoyed it. Great job.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Raffaele.
Yeah.
Ciao, everyone.
Bye-bye.